Shalom, and I allow myself to say also Shabbat Shalom because just previously I did another YouTube on the weekly reading from the Torah, Terumah, which is the contribution that the Israelites made in the desert to the making of the tabernacle. And I was saying that I'll give you a very brief rundown in a few sentences of what the Sabbath reading was, but it all builds up to what I'm going to say now. In the Torah reading, which is in Exodus 25 to 27, we talk about the GPS that the Torah is. The Holy Torah is a GPS, and it talks exactly where we were in the Arabian desert. That Yemen was to our right, the Red Sea was to our backs to the west, and of course we were facing also north and east. So the tabernacle had northeast, Yemen, and the Red Sea to our backs, the four directions, which places us squarely in the Arabian desert. In the Haftorah reading from the prophets, we read about how King Solomon sent 30,000 reservists, Israelites, into Lebanon, made it a peace pact with Hiram, who was king of Lebanon, his friend. And they chopped down, with permission of course, cedars of Lebanon, which are the best trees for building of the tabernacle, in this case for the building of the temple in Jerusalem. Now the first tabernacle was the desert tabernacle. It was mobile, and it could be put together and taken apart as the Israelites moved to the more than 50 different encampments in which they were in the Arabian desert. The Haftorah reading, which is a parallel reading, takes place hundreds of years later. We have to remember that the Exodus from Egypt is around 1500 BCE, and the Solomon Temple is about 1000 BCE. And the Torah reading, like I said, is geographical GPS, and the Haftorah reading from the prophets is a chronological GPS. And it talks very clearly about the 430 years that we were slaves in the land of Egypt, and we came out of this slavery in Egypt and wandered in the desert and finally came to the Holy Land, and King David reigned in Hebron 30 years, and then he reigned in Jerusalem, I think it was 17 years. And that King David couldn't build a temple because he was a man of war, he was a man of the sword. He had blood on his hands, and King Solomon indeed was the one who built the temple. Now, the reason I'm reviewing all of this from the Torah reading of this week, Terumah, is because we are now in the middle of a peace process. I've lost count, I don't know, 3 or 4 John Kerry updates. I'm doing now another update on John Kerry and another very important man in the American State Department by the name of Martin Indyk, who, according to today's news, said that Israel will give up the Jordan River. This is the Jordan River, from here up to about here. And the Jordan River will have drones and cameras and international peacekeepers, and Israel basically has to give up the Jordan River as its eastern boundary, which I think is complete nonsense, complete insanity. In addition to the fact that the United Nations says to Israel, do not give it up, and the Israeli political coalition says, do not give it up, and yet you have American leaders, contrary to the American viewpoint. The American people are against giving up the Jordan River. The Israeli people are against giving up the Jordan River. And yet you have politicians who fly in the face of reality. What I want to do now is I want to, forgive me for praising my son Aaron. Aaron, who is the CEO of Lipkin Tours, did me a very important personal favor. In addition to these YouTubes we make every week, I was supposed to go to Rome to meet with a very important official in the Vatican, to discuss the Bible Bloc Party, the Judeo-Christian Bible Bloc Alliance that I'm working to create. And I've been having a little bit of health problems over the last year or two. You can pray for me about that. And my cardiologist said to me, no, you're not going to Rome. You're going to stay here until we complete the stent. I did a stent last week. And so my son went in my place to Rome to meet with this very important official. and to explain briefly what it was that we are doing, to give him my books in German and in English, to give him copies of Israel Today magazine in German and in English. I am one of the founders of the English language Israel Today magazine, an excellent Christian news magazine for English speakers in the West. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I had a very important meeting a few years ago with a former Vatican ambassador to the State of Israel. His name was Pietro Sambi, Archbishop Pietro Sambi. And you have to remember, if you're forming a political party to run for the Israeli Knesset, and you're working with different types of Christians that live in the land of Israel, this includes Catholics and Greek Orthodox and Protestants and Messianics and Armenians. There are many, many different types of Christians living in the land of Israel. So if the Catholics are a major group numerically, and they are in Israel, you've got to meet with the representative of the Vatican. And I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Messianic, I'm not a Catholic, but I love all Christians, and I see we have no choice but to work with them. They are brothers and sisters. My son Aaron also, by the way, has put together an organization of Orthodox rabbis who are saying, yes, we must embrace those Christians who love us and bless us. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because here in the reading from the prophets this Shabbat, we read about the temple that Solomon built and all the contributions that the people of Israel made to build the temple of Solomon. You know, last night was Thursday night. My wife and I are very romantic, and sometimes we watch movies together on TV when I'm not on the computer writing books. And we saw a movie last night. I'm going to pitch the movie Kingdom of Heaven. Very, very impressive movie. And it's about the war between the Crusaders, the Christian Crusaders, and Saladin. Very, very good historic movie. Very fair to both sides. And the leader of the Christians, I don't remember what his name was, he's standing on the ramparts, on the walls of Jerusalem, and he's saying, we are fighting here in Jerusalem, the city where Solomon built his temple, and that the Muslims built a mosque on top of the temple, and where our Church of the Holy Sepulchre was built by the Christians, and the Muslims built a mosque on top of that too. You know, Muslims build mosques on top of the Jewish and Christian holy sites and then say that they are not Jewish or Christian, but that they are Muslim. So the story is very simple. The Vatican ambassador says to me that he met with the leaders of the Waqf. The Waqf, W-A-Q-F, Waqf are the Muslim trusteeship, and they're in charge of the Temple Mount compound in Jerusalem, where Solomon's temple existed, and where the second temple existed of Herod from 2,000 years ago. The same temple where Jesus visited. And until 1962, because I have these, I'll show them to you in some, I think I've shown them before, I'll show them again. I have the actual tourist brochure of the Waqf regarding the Mosque of Omar and the Aqsa Mosque, which says, I have the 1925 copy and the 1962 copy, which say that these mosques in Jerusalem, the Mosque of Omar and the Aqsa Mosque, were built on the site where Solomon and Herod built their two temples. In other words, the first temple and the second temple. That was until 1962. In 1964, the PLO was formed, the Palestine Liberation Organization, and all of a sudden Yasser Arafat decided to revise history and to come out with this utter nonsense and baloney that there was never a temple. All of a sudden the Palestinians decided there was no temple and that it is all a figment of the wild Jewish imagination. So they came to the Vatican Archbishop Sambi and said, what do you think? And he tried to get out of it. He didn't want to get into a political debate with them. And he said, listen, guys, he said, if you believe there was not a temple, and you say that the Old Testament was not true, and that Solomon did not build the temple, then you tell me, where did Jesus overturn the money changers' tables? Where did he have his bar mitzvah? And where did he go on Hanukkah? Hanukkah is mentioned in the New Testament, John 10, verse 22. And where did the Apostle Paul go? He went to the temple in Jerusalem, and Jesus was at the temple in Jerusalem. So if the temple never existed, it means the whole New Testament is a lie just as much as the Old Testament or Tanakh is a lie. And so my conclusion to all of you is, We have people like Mark Indyk and Secretary of State Kerry and President Obama, and before him President Bush, and before him President Clinton. All these people, it goes back to 1971, are trying to force Israel to commit suicide by giving up the Jordan River and half the Golan Heights for a peace agreement with people who are completely crazy. The Palestinian leadership is completely crazy. Palestinian people are great people. We live with them, we work with them, we eat, we drink, we share family time with these people. We live closely with the Palestinians. We have no problem with the Palestinians. We can live peacefully with them. Our problem is not with the Palestinian people. Our problem was the crazy Islamic leadership, which says there was never a temple. They fly in the face of reality. And if they fly in the face of reality, they're psychotic. And if they're psychotic, you can't make peace with them because they'll never make peace with you. The only thing these people are interested in is kill the Jew on Saturday, kill the Christian on Sunday. And we see it happening throughout the Middle East. And of course, if you have a US government that says, once the Israel-Palestinian question is solved, there'll be peace in the Middle East, that's complete nonsense. What do we see in Egypt? What do we see in Syria? What do we see in Lebanon? What do we see in Iraq? What do we see in Yemen? What do we see throughout the Islamic world? We see the Muslims killing each other. It has nothing to do with Israel, has nothing to do with the Jews, has nothing to do with the temple in Jerusalem, has nothing to do with the Christians. It's all part of the Islamic insanity. And so what I wanted to say in conclusion is, we're talking about a political update about Kerry and Indyk. But you know, if you believe in God, you understand that there is a devil. You understand that there is a Satan that is working to destroy all the good things that God has created on this earth. And if you know the Bible and you believe in God and you believe in the Bible, you know that God's word is true. And anyone who says that God's word is not true is also psychotic, living in castles in the air. And we have to be careful not to waste time making so-called peace agreements with people whose ideas are psychotic and they're living in castles in the air. Shalom.